Good morning, everyone. Back again. Nice to see you all. Thank you for participating and tuning in with me. So today I'd like to talk about your intuitive guidance system, something that's not talked about a lot in psychology in my industry, and I believe that it's really, really important because what I've been seeing in my clinic and what I know to be true for myself in my own personal experience in life is that it's the intuitive guidance system, which, just to clarify, is your truth teller, your personal truth teller that threads out truth, personal truth for you, moment by moment in your life. It's not anything woo-woo fantasy. It's grounded, intuitive information that you receive through your subtle sensory system that all of us, highly attuned or not, have the ability to tap into. But because we're in a world that is pulling us in so many different directions, we tend to miss these subtle signs, symptoms, sensations, emotions, even thoughts, visuals that are coming in. Highly attuned people are particularly aware of these subtle senses, but we don't talk about them because they're non-evidential, and what we can't see and what we can't prove is not real. That's the paradigm that we've been fused into in our collective consciousness. This is our historical backdrop. You've been dropped in, and the truth is, if you can't see it, it's not real. I'd like to say enough already to that. Enough already. Because when I am seeing people suffering for long periods of time, be it mentally, emotionally, or physically, this is actually the medicine that can help them get through those incredible dark night processes. What is actually happening is you are birthing into something different. It is not a crisis of the mind, but a crisis of the soul, a crisis of your life, so to speak, whereby direction needs to change. Okay? So I want to validate, justify, and put it out there that if you have been suffering for long periods of time, perhaps we need to move out of the collective mentality that if you can't see it, it's not real. And I want to help us to start to tap into this incredible intelligent system that is our energy body. Okay. So let's get into what is and how I can break this down for you so you can start to tap into these subtle senses in your energy body. What is the intuitive guidance system? And I'm an amateur. I've just been tracking, operative word here, tracking my system for the last 4 years because I got propelled out of my old life and went into deep suffering whereby everything was taken from me. And I had to hang out with my body again because it was a second dark night. I'd had another 4-year period of crisis. So it's not an area that I'm unfamiliar with. And I know when I'm there, I've got to surrender and I've got to tune in. So during this 4-year period, I've been working on frameworks around what is this thing that is guidance that actually helps me get through these incredibly challenging periods of my life and supports me to grow and grow into a potential I didn't even know I had in me. So let's start with what we all know really well, which is our gut instinct guidance. Okay, if we head outside and the sun's out and it's warm, we can feel it on our skin, we can see the sun out, we can smell spring in the air. Yep, that's your gut instinct guidance. Today I'm going to wear a long sleeve shirt rather than a short sleeve shirt because I could get burned. Okay, so this is gut instinct. Next we have an emotional guidance system. So important. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, we are amateurs in this area at this point of time. We're getting better. Highly attuned people are particularly good. at this dimension of ourselves, but we're still learning. So emotions are instructive. When we feel anger rise in our body, instead of releasing it out onto everybody around us, it's actually an instructive energy that needs to be placed on an altar and worked with in a curious, mindful, and non-judgmental manner. It is going to teach you more about who you are. It is helping you to go on the know thyself journey in terms of what are your standards, what are your values, has there been a trespass, has there been a boundary violation here, has there been a boundary violation to someone else, is there an injustice going on? It is helping you to know who you are. And from there, once it is actually processed through the system, which might require physical exercise or movement or whatever it is that releases that energy out of your body, you've actually made contact with the truth that sits underneath the anger. You may find there is a next step to take for an action or not. So that is your emotional guidance system. Okay? You feel sad, you may be grieving. You may have lost something of value to you. That's a process. And when we can detect that it's grief, then we allow ourselves to go through that process with kindness and nurturance, knowing that the process will expire on its terms in its own good time. Okay, so just a couple of examples of the emotional guidance system. Now, from your emotional guidance system, it branches out into something which is really important for highly attuned people to understand is our empathic guidance system, right? We all know what that empathy is like. We know what it's like to be flooded with empathy, to get empathically overwhelmed, right? So within that system, we've got the branch of cognitive empathy, so tapping into other people's narratives and stories and thoughts, the heart emotion empathy, which is tapping into their emotions and standing in their shoes, and also somatic empathy, okay? So actually being able to pick up on people's symptoms, their sensations that they're feeling in their body. The other day was a point in case for me, someone dear that I love was expressing the pain of a trauma that occurred for him 40 years ago, and he'd got re-triggered into that and was reliving that trauma in that moment. And I walked away and I was just absolutely flooded, and it took me half a day to actually get myself back to my own field of energy. But what I will be introducing to you, and I'll put an article out on it too soon, is cultivating a force in us that I call the tracker. Okay, now the tracker in us is just witnessing, observing, identifying and noting what is happening in your system without judgment. Because we are multi-dimensional beings and we can get flooded with many different feelings, sensations, thoughts, perceptions, and the list goes on through our energy body as highly attuned people, which can lead to that collapse and overwhelm. So the tracker helps us to just go, okay, so I'm noticing a strand of anger, and I'm noticing also my desire to parent my children really well in this moment, and I'm noticing also my inner critic getting upset with me for having anger that I don't even understand why it's there, and I'm also noticing, okay, and the list goes on. That is the tracker. And if you're really overwhelmed, what can be really helpful is just to put pen to paper and actually write down what you are tracking. Get it out of your system so you can see clearly, and then with the tracker drill down and actually go into some of those areas that you may not understand so well. Because the tracker is not there to give you a hard time. It's just there to help you discern what's actually going on in your system. So coming back to my example of this lovely friend of mine, I was all jammed up in my system with somatically, I was choked up in my throat, the grief and the pain that he was feeling, the thoughts and the stories happening in his head right now. My system was just flooded with it. That was an empathic overwhelm, but I'd been tracking enough to know that I was also experiencing strong urges coming from a childhood recruited pattern for my survival and safety and belonging and esteem called the codependent empath. I knew my codependent empath was online, and that codependent empath just simply goes, it's got a storyline of, you need to be level for me to be level, so I've got to fix you. So what do you need? So the codependent empath had an urge in me to go and make him dinner and sit with him and listen to him and talk with him and be there with him. And I ended up ringing another person who knew him and shall we organise a dinner? I got caught up in the urges of the codependent empath. And when I realised that, it took me a while to notice, because I'm trying to stay connected with my tracker. And my tracker's like, honey, we have actually got your codependent empath online taking over the show. I recognised I actually needed to go and support my body to neutralise and get back to my own centre. And from there, I was able to work out what I could and couldn't do for that person. Doing the things that wouldn't hurt me and push me outside of my zone of comfort. Because the codependent empath every time overdoes it. Okay? It's almost addictive, that energy. So that's how the tracker works. I hope that is helpful for you. It's a tool I want to give you, and I really encourage you to start tracking your multi-dimensional experience in your energy body, which is picking up on a lot. So far we know we've got gut instinct guidance, we've got emotional guidance coming through, and we've got empathic guidance coming through. What else have we got? These are things that you can notice in yourself, and you'll name them in different ways, but I notice I have creative and inspirational guidance. Okay, I'll be outside doing something and I get a little shot of grace of clarity, or the grace of insight, where I'm joining dots, So these are operating through my sensory system, and it will feel differently for every person. So the other really important one that I've always worked with since my first crisis in terms of a suffering episode has been the body-based guidance. If you're sitting with someone that you've been with for a long time and you've really enjoyed their company, but all of a sudden you're noticing a pattern arising where you want to throw up every time you're with them, instead of giving yourself a hard time, the tracker's just going, I'm noticing that something's rising in your throat right now and you want to throw up. It's guidance. And that guidance needs to be consciously and intelligently processed through. And you may not get the answer straight away. And this is where we head to the next level of guidance, which is, you can call it what you like. I'm going to give it some names. Take whichever name resonates or give it another. Spiritual, soul, energetic, psychic guidance. Okay? So we're getting information, and it may be related to our destiny and where we're meant to be going. But part of that could be through your body-based guidance of, I want to throw up when I'm with this person that I love so much. What's going on for me? And if you don't get an answer to your questions, once you have intelligently processed it through, that's the answer. You need to sit with it for now and keep noting if it is a pattern. And just be open and receptive and surrender to what is. It's sort of like a surrender and a muscle of faith that we're actually cultivating here, is saying, hey, when I'm ready, please deliver that information. I need to understand why I want to throw up. Okay. The main thing is not to make yourself wrong. We need to cut that out because it's important. Okay. And sometimes, and actually oftentimes, I have to say this about guidance, it's not something you want to hear. It's taking you out of your frame of reference. It's pointing you, it's directional to something new that you haven't quite got the eyes to see yet. That's why you're noting it. Critically important to note it and not judge it. The first thing we want to do is get our inner tormentor out and beat the crap out of ourselves. Why am I having these horrible feelings, and I've got anger and rah rah rah. Just note it. It's okay. It's okay. Trust the process. If you're going through a dark night reshuffle, you are not going to understand your guidance straight off the bat. But I want you to hold it with reverence, because it's taking you on a journey that probably 4 or 5 years from now you'll look back and go, thank goodness I listened. Because if you don't listen, you can remain stuck. My darlings, this is real. What I'm giving you here, what has been so real for my life, is medicine for my life. I call it energy medicine. It's Kira energy medicine. And that is by tapping into the intelligence of my physical body, working with my subtle senses, and having a faith that things will make sense on life's terms, in life's good times, or God's terms, however you want to frame this. Okay? It's something about letting go of this illusion of control we have as humans and allowing that process to take us where it needs to. It's hard to believe, but it's a loving process. And it's going to take consciousness work. So I would encourage you, and I hope you're getting something out of this today, I would encourage you to start tracking, to hold your intelligent body, energetic body, multi-dimensional body with reverence, and to track those subtle senses that have been with you all along but you may have ignored. And I would love to hear from you if you have any feedback or anything you want to add, because this is a conversation that needs some dialogue here, because I'm just on my own here doing my thing, wanting to put something out there that could be potentially helpful, even for just one person. That would be great. So thank you very much for listening. It's been beautiful to reconnect with you again. Lots of love to you, and we'll talk again soon.